So taking a look at this part, it's elevated a little bit, so you're going to have to look for the parallel lines to it. So I'm going to estimate a little bit higher than here, putting this up like so. And if you remember from the lettering, you're trying to do a baseline and a height line kind of thing, but just to kind of simply base it out, here's this bracket that comes up, and I have the view of it from both the top and the side. So let me shrink this down just a little bit. That this becomes a mechanical piece that has dimension to it, curving it around like so, and it does have a bracket, so a circular cylindrical shape. So all the stuff that is geometric is a little bit easier to draw from. And then inside here is the kind of a donut shape for the elliptical part, and on the top of that has a semicircular piece that I'm just kind of illustrating, kind of lightly at first. It kind of has a little kind of a fastener inside of it. It gets kind of complicated. Like I said, something so simple all of a sudden becomes pretty complex. So the part that has the stuff for the fabric, I'm just going to treat this like a ribbon, let it go off the page, but when you see this, it has these vertical attachments, almost like a banner. And whether I go off the page and come back on, I can compose this a little bit. So it'll give me a little bit, and this also has some lettering on it, so you're trying to simulate that. Okay. So there it is, kind of laid out. The harder part is putting the names up there. So again, I have it almost in this view, almost as a one-point perspective piece. I can find the center of something by crossing the diagonal, depending on where I put that, and that'll give me the center line. And the nice thing is that this now has the Strack. Now the title, they didn't change on me, so we'll change that. You can put that, you can initial just the DAD, but if you do this, I can put a line up here for the vanishing point, because sometimes perspective does both 1, 2, and 3 point at the same time there. So you can kind of lightly sketch out this part. And I'll put that in here. So I'll pass. So I kind of estimate this section for it. I'm going to change it to Digital Art Design. They have the old one up there. And you can put your name. You don't have to put my name in there. If you want to personalize it, go ahead and pop yours in there, like so. And so here's the all pass. So once I have this, I could use a straight edge. Keeping these lines parallel, I'm just going to lightly draw in part of it. And just place it in there. Again, I have a little bit of a vanishing point up here. And again, I'm going to change the name to Digital Art and Design. Okay, and again, you can put your own name in there, but give yourself, it helps really well if you give yourself a baseline and a height line for this. So here I have this part. Okay, so now that I have that, I can adjust these parts. Now keep in mind they have Polaris going on a couple of these lines, so it's almost the negative space. But once I get that part done, I kind of have it laid out, and now I can go back in and start to heavy up the parts that I think I'm going to keep. In this case, the lettering, so I just went with a single stroke. Now I'm going to go into a heavier heavier piece. And since I'm still using this straight edge, it's going to actually help me clean everything up. So as you start to illustrate this, and anything the curves, now the curves go above and below that line, so you just got to be adjusting it. But it kind of sets it up pretty good. So it's kind of building that part. So the first part, the laying out and the spacing of it, kind of helps you so you can be a little more definitive here on this section. And again, you can put your own name on there. So now I have that. So then the rest of this, now it's going to have a little bit of reflective surface, but I can take another pencil, just kind of heavy up these pieces, and again find these sections. Now this metallic part's going to have a little bit of shine to it, but I am just going to wrap it around pretty easily. And since I have part of the drawing just from the sketch, it makes it a little bit easier doing this. So it takes a little practice, but again, that's what it is. So once I have that, even though if I outline it again, it's not going to hurt it. And then finding this part here. See if you can't come up with this. And this can be a little more kind of a free form banner, depending on how much you put in. Let that be your choice of the composition. How that's coming across. And again, you can use a straight edge if it helps you. In this case, I'm just blending in part of it on one side, the other. Come down here. And I have, you can use a scale, a triangle, ruler. Triangle's kind of nice, you can see through it. This gives you a little bit of a thickness to it. And then it has this part that's cut through is going to be an elliptical shape. And then simply look for the shadows in this metal part that kind of cast it and also help give a dimension to it. And then the metallic part is just kind of a highlight offset on either side of it. And it builds that part up. And again, when you come to this cable or cord, you can see that it has the word Polaris written on it. So just like we did yesterday, you can set yourself up a base and a height line and just use the block style, P-O-L-A-R, and the I is going to be closed up in there, and then just chip away at them, whatever part isn't existing there. Make sure you spell it right. And again, you can even put your own name in there if you want. But that's kind of giving you that section over there. And sometimes you can see here, C-A. So this part here. So I'm just kind of putting Polaris and then putting Career Center, a little bit distance in there. And then as it wraps around, I'm just going to kind of spread these words out. Again, just give it a height line and a base line. C-N-T-E-R, so just kind of blocking that off, rounding those off. It gives you kind of a nice setup there. So you kind of have it pretty well laid out, and then all I have to do is render just a little bit more and touch it up, and you've got this pretty well laid out. And again, if you go with the side of the pencil, you can shade it that way, depending on how you like to hold it. So even by doing this way, I'm giving it a highlight up at the top and shading it right away, so it gives you that part. It's kind of fun to do. And any kind of cast shadows will kind of loop around it as well. So here with this, I can go right, I'm doing the lines actually parallel to the width of this, just to get a tone in there across it. And then taking a look at the shading, since it's a reflective surface, I can play around with that a little bit. Let it be dark and light, different areas. Put the straight edge down, let it butt up against there so you can be a little more forceful with the pencil. And depending on what paper you're using, if you're using your own sketchbook and stuff, it might have texture to it. And even this little bracket's going to cast a shadow on itself, or reflection, just like we've been working with. So you get a pretty good. And it's just a matter of pushing in a little more detail. Okay.